Again, hi everybody. It's really great to see you. Today, we want to welcome you to the second webinar of this, what we call a bundle around the continuous improvement model. Right now, we are in planning to implement and actual implementation. Really bridging our last session when we were talking about strategy to the actual implementation. And so we'll go ahead and get started by first reading the disclaimer. So this presentation was produced under the U.S. Department of Education, contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises Incorporated. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred. Okay. Again, we just want to thank your Office of Indian Education team for helping support the ongoing technical assistance. Joining me is not just Casey, but we have our whole TA team here, Doris and Inson, Chama, and also Chelsea. We're all on with you folks today. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put in the chat and they'll either answer them in the chat or let me know and we'll answer them together. So what are we doing today? Today we're really going over some previously learned implementation strategies around community and family engagement. We're also going to dig into exploring how to define roles, set milestones, and track progress, as well as understand how community values shape and sustain work-based learning. You should have received an email this morning that gave you the recording of the first webinar and also some tools. We'll also put the tools in the chat as we go through our content, but I just sort of wanted to cue you in around that. In addition, again, we are trying to build upon and layer the technical assistance. So we begin with a recording that you have access to in that email. We provide some tools, and then our second webinar is where we actually engage with each other and tools and learn from each other. And then following this, we'll also have our our talking circles that will engage you folks more and have you sharing more about, how you do implementation. And for this part of the series, that talking circle will be coming up on July 22nd and 24th. So just wanted to remind you at the top of this session. But before we get into the meat of things, we wanted to engage. We're going to be engaging in a lot of different activities. There's going to be some whiteboard work, and I think we're going to put that up. There's also going to be some polls, and we're going to also have breakout rooms. And so we're going to be using a lot of technology to make sure everybody's engaged. So before we start, we want to do this whiteboard reflection. At the top, you can see that top board. It says, think back to a time when your community or family was actively involved in a program that mattered. What made that engagement meaningful or powerful? And so what I want to ask you to do, okay, all right, thank you. What I want to ask you to do is to put down your thoughts or ideas on the Post-its. There are Post-its already up there that you can go ahead and click on and begin typing in. If we run out of those Post-its, you can come here to this to the left-hand side of this board and grab a sticky note and drag it over and put it here on the board to add more, just in case we run out of sticky notes. So again, if you wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts regarding this question on a sticky note. And while you guys are filling that out, I will add more sticky notes. Is everybody able to access the whiteboard and start typing in there? Yeah, that's what you do, Lisa. You just kind of click on the sticky note. And then once you get the sort of box around it, then you can put your cursor there and you can start typing. There you go. Awesome. You guys got it. I'll drag some more sticky notes over here. Oh, wow. Somebody's being fancy and connecting their sticky notes. If you're having maybe some technical difficulty, maybe you're on your phone and you can't access the whiteboard, you can go ahead and share your responses to the slide in the chat as well. So again, the question is, think back to a time when your community or family was actively involved in a program that mattered. What made that engagement meaningful or powerful? Awesome. All right. Got some more typing. We have some people just joining us. What we're doing is we're just sharing our thoughts around this particular prompt. The prompt is, think back to a time when your community or family was actively involved in a program that mattered. What made that engagement meaningful or powerful? Language and culture family nights. Yeah, those are great. I love those nights. Clear outcomes and activities to achieve. Great. Community was very involved in language immersion programs, meaningful engagement, because it was the first cohort to travel through the program K-12. Wow. Greatly enriched language. Oh, thank you. Made that bigger. Not only the students that participated in the immersion model. Awesome. That's awesome. Being able to share our cultural values. It was an event that was important to those involved, so I didn't feel like it was forced. Oh, wow. That's cool. I like that. Positive identity and self-esteem, relationship building, connecting with the land. Yeah, that's really, a lot of times in education and in actually any kind of program, we think about relationship building only between human and human, right? Not necessarily like with the environment, which is such a native perspective. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. We're going to scroll down to the next board. Um, and this is really, you can just, you put in a word, put in a couple words or a sentence. But what words best describe what sustainable community engagement looks or feels like to you? Like how, like when we talk about sustainable, it's not a lot of times we think about like the environment, but really this is like, how do you sustain, what does sustaining community engagement, what does that look or feel like to you? And you may be wondering, like, well, Lenny, how come we're talking about community engagement when we're supposed to be talking about implementation? Well, in the previous technical assistance bundles that we provided, we heard a lot from you regarding engagement and looking for ways to better engage, uh, both from the initial engagement all the way to a deeper and more empowering level of engagement. And so we thought we would, throughout this, we'll be focusing on in community engagement, but yeah, so I wanted to share that we want to start off our sort of thinking and sharing around engagement. All right, I'm going to take a look. Involvement from many across stakeholder groups, yeah, with embedded leadership. Nice. I'm going to make this yellow one a little bigger because my eyes. Read this. Communication across groups, reaching out to invite and involve community members, connecting with culturally responsive communication. Huh, interesting. Multiple opportunities to participate. When there are, sorry, I gotta, my eyes. Okay. When there are more than one person that is engaged and it does not fall on one person, yeah, for sure. Sometimes it starts off with one, but very quickly you got to bring more people in, right? Otherwise it's hard. You're the only one engaged. Interaction, understanding, patience, identity, communication, connecting, culture, community. Love it. Love it. Oh, I love people are putting hearts. Feel free if you want to like just put a icon there. You can see it again on the left-hand side. You can just drag it over if there's something somebody is sharing that really resonates with you. Also, I see in the chat we have accessible support to remove barriers to participation, i.e. location, accessible, childcare support, transport support, family caregiver, elder support, multiple member checks. Yeah. Relevant, building relationships, different topics around same central theme. Love it. Parent training, meaningful because we were able to talk and share expertise in the room, relevant, timely, and safe. That's a really good word too. Safe, making sure environments are safe for people to be engaged. Awesome. Okay. Well, again, thank you for sharing. I think really great stuff, but I think things that, really like are based in community and culture and relationships. I think one of the things that came up multiple times around relationships, not just with each other, but with the land and environment, with sort of this intergenerational approach around engagement and relationship building. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We'll get back. We'll close that screen. And we'll get back into our technical assistance slides. I'm gonna close that. There we go. Okay, and let me make sure, let me share. All right, there you folks can see it. All right, so we just want to remind you again that before we jump into all of this, that we always need to think with the end in mind. What are those things that we need to do at the end of the year or at the end of an activity? Always thinking about how you're evaluating a program or activity, thinking about how you can tell your story through data you collect, and also thinking about, part of it really is being able to tell your story in your APR as it relates to the Office of Indian Education in this grant. One of the things you just want to ask yourself is, as you're going through implementation, how do I know these activities are working? Always wanting to look at both qualitative and quantitative data, both in big ways and in small ways. Sometimes just being able to look at a data point around increase in engagement is an important data piece that you want to sort of track. And that could be something that you do per activity. Again, before we dive into it, I sort of want to talk about where we've been. During our last session, we reviewed what makes a strong implementation plan. We explored how to move from strategy selection into action. And we're going to go into and the importance of program monitoring. This is all really important and all part of a continuous I was going to say continuous impact, but the continuous improvement cycle. So where are we today? We are in the implementation phase of this continuous improvement. We'll be digging into our next steps in the process, which is implementing. This series of trainings, again, is focused on keeping in mind the end outcome from the beginning. Today, we will use what we learned during the recording about the steps in implementation planning and look at an example and activities that we'll be doing together. We're going to start with thinking about SMART goals. Imagine ourselves building this program together. And remember that all of these planning steps are important for completing grant applications, completing a case for support, helping you to develop materials to share outside of just this grant. So for today, we are going to be using a working example. Our working example is the Red Willow Learning Circle. It is launched on a tribally relevant work-based learning program for Native youth in grades 7 through 12. It operates during after-school hours and seasonal intersessions. It engages families to help students navigate complexity from applications and financial aid to job training and career readiness. When families are partners, students are more likely to persist, graduate, and find purpose. And when communities are engaged, they can become career co-navigators, connecting students with mentors, internships, and pathways. So that's just a brief description of our example, our working example, the Red Willow Learning Circle. Hold on a second. My chat went off. Okay. Sorry. I just want to check the chat again because I haven't. Oh, thanks, Doris. Doris put in the tool that we'll be using. You can click on that link and download it, and as we go through this session. So what are the key elements of a strong implementation plan? First, again, is clear goals. Now, again, you folks have written your grant and have successfully been awarded your grant. And so you did develop clear goals. You also had to define the roles that are needed in order to implement that goal and successfully achieve that goal. You also had to develop timelines and milestones along the way, so that you would, one, know if you are meeting your objectives and your goals that you stated in your grant. You also had to provide any kind of resources that you would need via your budget or via people and partnerships, MOUs, and also some possible training. We see a lot of training, of course, in the PD program, but also in NAL, around training teachers in language or teaching strategies or instructional strategies. We also see a lot of training happening in NYCP as well. And then also an important piece and consideration when you are doing your implementation plan is looking at how you are engaging community and family. And then, of course, monitoring that progress of this. And I think that's sort of really where most of you are at, is that you have your goals, you have all this work, and you are in the process of both implementing and monitoring and revising and tweaking, really, and fine-tuning your program so that you are making sure that you're hitting your goals. We're going to jump into a little activity, and this is, you can just sort of throw this in the chat, but we're going to ask everybody, based on what you know, and we have information here, if you could come up with a SMART goal for the Red Willow Learning Center. And we would love for you to share that in the chat. And then once you've shared yours, we're going to share ours. So we'd love to see that. So go ahead and use the information here and develop a SMART goal. And just to remind you, just in case you maybe, you haven't been grant writing lately, or developing SMART goals or objectives. So I just remind you what SMART stands for. So the S is specific, the M is measurable, the A is something that is achievable, the R is that it's relevant. I guess again, it's connected to the needs that you identified. And then the T is it's based on a timeline. So there should be those elements in a SMART goal. So you can go ahead and throw those in the chat. Thanks, Doris. Doris also threw a tool in the chat that you can use. Oh, there you go. And the SMART. Awesome. Okay. Well, as you are thinking about your SMART goal, I'll share the SMART goal that we came up with. And what I'm not going to read it because you can read it, but what I am going to do is sort of call out the SMART as best as I can. So right off the bat, we see that we start with the T, we have a timeline, and then we get into the M, which is really the 80%. So we're measuring, and that's our measure of enrolled students will complete at least 2 hands-on work-based learning activities. And so this is really, I know when we think about achievable, we're thinking about, is this achievable in terms of both the time that it is being implemented, can that be achieved in 1 year, as well as probably some previous information that was shared regarding the need, and seeing if that is actually achievable in 1 year. Specific, the S, yeah, I think it's very specific, and it says, 2 hands-on work-based learning activities, and it even lists out what some of those may be, and also really provides some real specificity around creating a personal learning plan. Awesome. I see everybody. Thanks for sharing your SMART goals in the chat. And then relevant, one of the ways that we can know if it's relevant or not is again connected to maybe something you've written in your needs assessment or the challenges that this measure directly addresses and will show and indicate the relevancy. So if I'm writing about, let's say, the need for food security, and I am now providing work in forklift. I mean, I'm providing workshops and certification in forklift. I need to show how those two are relevant and connected to each other. And so that's really where the R comes in. I'm going to pause me talking and take a look at the chat. To have 75% in hands-on job training of our targeted goal. Nice. Redwood will host quarterly informational sessions for parents about navigating school systems and post-secondary education. Great. That's really specific. I see the time. I see the 75% of students in grade 6-12. I'm looking at Amy's goal in the chat. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Oh, and we got Patty has our actual August 15th, 2025 as a date. Get a calendar of nice. Nice. Prepare participating students to become in 12 months. Okay. Great job. Great job, everybody. I
Can you
think
ask that question one more time, that what you wanted us to do?
go ahead.
It was to put in the chat and activities that you want to do to engage for the learning circle.
Yeah, it was to create a SMART goal based off of this example here for this program. And some of that SMART goal may include some activities that you would be doing. And it could also be a SMART goal focused around engagement as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking a question. Yeah, Chelsea just said, feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions or type it in the chat. I am watching the chat. Sometimes when the screen moves, it disappears, but somebody will let me know. All right, so now that we have our fabulous goal statement, and we're going to work off of that example, we really have to think about how are we going to achieve that. And one of the important ways of achieving that is by having people help you and having them have roles in the achievement of this goal. So we're going to dive into and get you folks to share your expertise around identifying roles needed in order to achieve our SMART goal. So I'll just go back again. Let's look at this example of the SMART goal. And maybe, Ensign, can you screenshot this and put this in the chat? That'd be fabulous. Or somebody on the TA team. Thank you. So we're going to just hold that here because for this activity, I'm going to ask you to, you're going to actually type on this screen and I'm going to give you some directions on how to do that. So at the top of your screen or at the bottom of your screen, it depends, there should be a toolbar. And in that toolbar, you'll see like a pencil that looks like it's pointing down and it says annotate at the bottom. If you click on that, that will allow you to type directly onto this screen. Okay, so you can go ahead and do that. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to really think about the roles that we need in order to achieve our SMART goal. Again, think about that SMART goal that's in the chat and what roles we need to create or assign to successfully meet the goals and objectives. You can always, of course, come off of mute, or you can, if you're having problems with the annotation tool, you can go ahead and put your feedback in the chat. So again, we started off with one of the things we know we need some leadership, right? We need somebody who's connecting all the pieces in this program. And so we created the role of project director. That group name is they are part of the leadership group and what their responsibilities are, really to oversee program logistics and staff. Now, what is another role that if you had, if this was your program, you would want to put in? And Ensign, thank you, Ensign. She just put in the chat, again, another way to get to the annotate. You can click on more, and annotate may show up for you there, or on your toolbar, you already might have that, the annotate pencil. Oh, if you don't have the annotate button, again, please share in the chat and I will be watching for your thoughts. Oh, I love that financial officer is number 2. Sometimes we don't, sometimes we think of financial officer, depending on your organization, is in the finance office and is not necessarily connected to your team. But I love that we made sure we put the financial officer number 2 in this list. A learning partner, a school or a district, great. That's again a great thinking about partners are always really important. This is not does not have to just be paid staff. You know, instructor, yeah, we're gonna need an instructor for sure. Yeah, so for the financial officer, a way to communicate budget needs to us outside of typical SD budget format that doesn't match federal budget format. Yeah. I really want to encourage you, if you can, to really think about your whoever's managing your finances as a part of your team. Having them come to regular staff meetings helps them to think about, helps to hear how you're implementing things and how that can be reflected appropriately in the budget and or if there needs to be any budget changes based on you continually improving your programs. Awesome. I'm gonna change. Oh, great. Oh, shucks. That's great, Carmelita. Yeah, so induction programming coordinator. Yeah, that would be important. As assistant director. Awesome. Great. Also, I think when we were thinking back to our first activity when we were putting things on the Post-its, I saw a lot of you talk about, businesses, other community organizations, parents, elders, you know, to reach out to community really requires some attention and yeah, attention and management of it, right? And so, and also one of the resources may be your people with language, you know, information or expertise. Again, thinking back to this SMART goal, it may be businesses and, mentors. These are all roles. Again, when we think of roles, we don't just necessarily have to think of paid positions or even contracted positions. Awesome. Okay, thanks for sharing. We're going to move on to the next screen. I see here Chelsea saying students. Yeah, hey, students is good. That's an important role as we do. And then I think that's Leslie is putting in on the screen evaluation partner. Yes, yes. And then community liaison. Yeah, really important. The person who sometimes engagement requires ongoing, regular communication in different formats to just keep people engaged until you see them next. Awesome. Okay, great. Again, thanks for sharing both on the annotation and in the chat. Let's move on. Oh, I think I have to erase. Sorry. Can I close it? 1 second. Huh,
Oh, Lonnie, I got it. It
thank
should be
you.
on now. Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't find my button.
Mhm.
Okay, so now that we got that erased, let's move on to milestones. And again, I know you folks are professionals at this, but we always, when we think about implementation, want to make sure we're working in some key checkpoints on your journey. And so these milestones can really help you break down big goals into more manageable steps to track progress over time. Of course, we want to make sure that we are celebrating our wins so that the team stays motivated, and then identify delays and adjust plans. Now, that I also know that the team can really also feel motivated if they are part of those adjustments. And so when they bring their data, their progress, their challenges, when you have a team, it doesn't necessarily mean they should feel like if something's not working that they should feel bad. Getting them to be a part of the problem solving around a challenge that they're upcoming can also be very motivating for your team. And then, of course, like I said, identify any delays and adjust plans. Now, one of the key milestones, I think, for OIE grantees is, of course, our APR. Normally, I think, even though it happens in the middle of the year, it's sort of a midway checkpoint for you folks. And I know in like working with you folks, you're usually planning for this, either at least a month in advance because you're trying to pull together all of your data and make sure you have it so that you can report. Even if it isn't the final numbers, I know that a lot of you are working on how to articulate your explanation of progress. And so that's a really good, strong milestone. And you can work in smaller milestones or checkpoints that lead up to the completion of your APR. And you can work back from the APR as well as the end of the year and work back from there to develop milestones that you can check up on. So here's a sample of how to manage, one way you can manage your milestones with a timeline. Let's now sort of think about a timeline and milestones for this program. And this one, I'm just going to have you put it in the chat. So the prompt is, so in month 8 of, again, this project, this example program, what would we expect to see achieved? So you can kind of see where we're going with month 1, month 2, month 3, and month 6. So now let's jump from month 6 to month 8, and you can just go ahead and put in the chat. What would be the milestone you would see in month 8 as it relates to this program? Does that question make sense? If it doesn't, let me know in the chat or raise your hand or come off of mute and go, Oleni, you're not making sense. So again, you're jumping from, we provided month 1, 2, 3, and 6. Now, what would be the milestone we would expect to see in month 8? Thanks, Vincent, for putting the goal there. So remember, the goal is by the end of the year of year 1, 80% of enrolled students will complete at least 2 hands-on work-based learning activities, job shadowing, community mapping, or mentorship, and create a personal learning plan as measured by student checklists. So in month 8, what would be a milestone we'd want to be achieving? Awesome. Emily shares by month 8, 2 quarterly family sessions have been offered and 40% of students. Nice. That's a great one. Making sure students are completing checklists. That's for sure. Month 8, follow up on student checklist for learning plan. Reviewing findings from month 6 and make adjustments for continued improvement. Awesome, Carmelita. A data check to see if the program is on path to meeting the goals. That's a good one. You want to plan in, times where you are checking your data. By month 8, 60% of students have completed their work-based learning activities and learning plans, make plans to meet total goal. Nice. Awesome. These are like really good month 8 check-ins. Students' checklists have been reviewed and revised. Second engagement activity has been conducted. Yeah. And these are really great. Like, again, when you bring your team around to look at, it's like a part of your regular team meeting to see where you're at, to see if there needs to be adjustments made. None of this is, except for like your OIE objectives, none of this is really like set in stone. We're always sort of tweaking to make sure that we hit those objectives and goals, and of course your GEPRA as well. Great, thanks for sharing. Now moving on to the next thing we want to make sure we have in a strong implementation plan is really thinking about the resources and training. We want to consider the core resources that we need, especially when we're focusing on youth and community values. And there's some examples there, community mentors, and maybe we need honoraria, career partners, transportation for site visits, staff training on trauma-informed and land-based practices. What I wanted to hear from you folks, again, you can come off of mute and share, or you can put in the chat. What is your organization, your program's top resource gap right now? Right now in July of 2025, which for some of you have a few more months to either completely end your OIE grant, or you are going to be in transition to the next year of your OIE grant. What is your top resource gap right now? Anyone want to come off of mute and hear, so we can hear another voice besides my boring voice? No? Okay.
So I'll share.
Okay, good.
So we have 24 participants, but they're all, 22 are teaching, and so they're all on summer break. So
Mhm.
we just met yesterday, and as we're planning, I think it's just making sure they're engaged, since
Yeah.
we don't hear from them as much during the summer right now.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Lisa. Anybody, anybody else? Top resource gap you're having right now? Everybody has their staff. Everybody has their language mentors. Everybody has enough money. We're all good.
Well, for our program right now, we are in induction, and so you can tell that's what I'm thinking about a lot. With that, I wasn't obvious. And this is our second year of induction. So in our first year, of course, everybody was anxious to, or else not, maybe not anxious. Anxious probably isn't the best word to use, but they were very aware of their obligation to have at least 80% of the induction programming offered.
Mhm.
They completed, that's the minimum.
Yeah.
And that's on the obligation agreement. They must complete 80%. So year one is over and we're going into year two.
Mhm.
And we did have really strong participation, but as I'm going into year two and planning for year two, I feel like in the other person's comment, it's hard to rekindle that desire to continue with induction programming. We have some programming that's coming on board in the fall, and so yeah, I think having a summer break in between, they were just coming off graduation when they went into induction, and so it was still pretty fresh in their minds. I think they're just tired. I think my participants are tired.
Yeah,
To be honest, I just think they've had their first year as an administrator or as a special ed strategist, and it was a huge learning curve for them
yeah,
to come from the classroom or whatever environment they were, and now they've
yeah,
had a whole year of doing that. I think they've got really tired, especially my principals.
yeah,
The first year principals were pretty wiped out. So, being able to come up with something that is motivating to them, and maybe they'll come back in this fall and they'll be ready to get together again with their cohort
yeah,
members. But that's the gap. And is it a resource gap? I don't know, but it certainly is
yeah,
a programming gap
yeah,
for induction.
yeah,
I believe they think it's important, but they just have so much on them right now.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's just my thoughts on it anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing. I felt that. I was I was a principal and I felt that tiredness that happens in the summer. Yeah, I hear that. Awesome. Thanks. And thanks again, Doris, for sharing the tool in the chat. All right. Oh, sorry. Let's move on. So now we're getting into, again, community and family engagement. Really like why, you folks know why engagement matters. It's a part of, a lot of Native programs, and definitely a lot of educational programs want to make sure that community and family are engaged. And all of the different ways that you folks do that through talking circles, dinners, parent nights. I'm guessing, Carmelita, you're thinking about how to bring back those principles when they come back together and keeping them engaged and giving a shot of some energy, maybe. Also, updates, how we're communicating using different means, collecting and getting feedback. And also, I think, one of the things with engagement is not just getting feedback, but it's showing the people who you're asking for feedback from the impact of their feedback, and that you heard them, and that there have been some things that may have been changed or are continuing. But I think that loop should be completed. So we've received these surveys. What have we done with the information all these people have provided in their surveys? So not only are they engaged, but they feel like their engagement and their is valued. And so we want to make sure when we're asking for surveys or focus groups, that we close that loop by showing people what we've done with the information they've provided us. Also, again, making space for elders, youth, and families. We've shared this in the recording, but these are sort of the continuum of increasing stakeholder influence and decision-making power, which is part of really the goal of engagement. And so you start with informing, where, again, they're informing you, and move into consulting, and then along to involvement, where the participation increases, and also their perspectives are being used to make decisions. And then, of course, you get into collaborating, where the partnership becomes a true partnership, and you work alongside. So staff and families and community partners co-design and co-lead initiatives with shared responsibility and decision-making. I've seen a couple of programs that do camps that engage cultural practitioners in that, and they sort of co-design and co-lead those activities and initiatives. And then, of course, empowering at the highest level. Families and communities are leaders. They have ownership of initiatives. Some of you actually have family and community members on maybe your school boards, or maybe even some of your nonprofit boards where they are really part of decision making and have a real true role in an active role in making those decisions and driving change. So we're almost finished, but I did want to do a little, we can do a breakout. And you folks are gonna be breaking out and discussing these questions. And we'll put these questions in the chat so you'll be able to see them in while you're in the chat. But really, we're going to be focusing around community engagement as it relates to implementation. And so you want to make a plan for family and community engagement for your work-based learning activity. So you're going to talk about that. And you can also include events, surveys, marketing, any type of engagement activity. And so we're going to be going out to breakout rooms. All righty. I know that was super short, but we've got some other things that we want to go through and want to make sure we get to the end. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But if you wouldn't mind, I'm a little nosy, and I would love to hear what you folks talked about in your room. So we can start with room 1. That was with Chelsea, Chris, Kari, and Kimberly. If somebody wants to just give us a peek into what you folks talked about.
Yeah, we just talked real briefly about some of the things, that we were doing for community engagement. Really, a majority of us are doing or trying to do things where it is, on site or connecting rather than through Zoom. Or, we do a few Zoom things, but a lot of hands-on stuff, and then collection of material, information, or like a survey to provide feedback in terms of what the participants enjoyed. Did they learn something in that? So a little bit of survey action on that, but a lot of stuff that we did was around either language, culture, book readings, for example, and that. So that was kind of our a quick snapshot of what we worked on or talked about there.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Thanks for sharing. And then on to room 3 with Ashley, Carla, Christy, Patty, and Rizheri. Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Carla Witt. I'm from Ogallala Lakota College, and we kind of talked about doing flyers and media posts, how cheap it is for marketing these days, and also a community visit. I'm from a institution and where we're decentralized, so we have information out there, and I think Patty was too. So if you have institutions, other places, that's your feeders for information. And then we set agendas for activities, and a lot of the stuff we talked about were cultural activities. And then recruiting presenters, people that will come and help with and then recruiting mentors, because mentors are important, and we want to recruit students. Well, in my institution, we want to recruit students to college. So all of our outreach is geared towards that. And then doing the Google survey form, I was talking about, we have a Lakota leadership camp, not funded by Department of Ed, but funded by someone else or another entity. And we do the summer Lakota leadership camp. And that's what we do, is we get mentors, students, college, and then elders and community members to help present, and we make things during the week. And then we have a bridge program where students come and work with mentors, and then at the end they present and their families come. So, and then how we get all these ideas is those surveys at the end where they fill out. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything.
That's great. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Then moving on to room 5 with Amanda, Carmelita, Conrad, Edwina, Veronica, and Zechariah.
Well, we all kind of just shared some of the things that we do within our community and how we get make connections. And I made the comment, and it's, you know, generic as you want to take it, I guess. But I said, you know, my best communicator um, for my population of individuals, which are Native people from North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and a little bit into Minnesota, not too far, but um, is Facebook, because Indian people still love Facebook, even though everybody's moved, a lot of other people have moved on.
Yeah.
Facebook is real, and it's a way to communicate. Conrad was in my room, and he shared how over the last 6 years, the way in which he has built, you know, engagement in his program and through his program and in the community is just like for the community at large to see the success and changes that have been made from this program in their students, in their graduates. So it's kind of like he's building credibility through the participants and the product of his trainings with those high school kids, you know. So I mean that a lot of times works as strongly as anything that you could put out in a flyer. If you
Yeah.
see some completers that are actually out in the community, from the community, who are
Yeah.
doing really good work and making a difference, that that builds so much credibility between the community and you as a project director or your program, or you know, whatever services you're trying to
Yeah.
bring forward and, you know, encourage participants to take advantage of. I think Zach said that Zachariah Charles was also in the room, and he mentioned that building credibility in his community with his programming has been a challenge, but that's something that he's been able to overcome and get
Right.
past. But at first it was to vend. And Zach, if I didn't say that right, say it. We'll do some member checking for all you scholars out there. If I didn't say it right, just say it.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Um, Sounds like a really robust conversation. Um, let's move on to room 6 with Amy, Damon, Erin, Kimberly, Leslie, and Ryan.
Good afternoon. So in
Hi.
the group, we were sharing some of the high points of our work-based learning opportunities and finding some similarities across those. And one of my colleagues, you know, shared the power of direct involvement from the family members and how that can really be a driver for, you know, success with the students themselves, but also then that ongoing family and community engagement. An example she gave was college tours. You know, it's one
Yeah.
thing to take the students on the college tours as part of a work-based learning program, but when the parents are also involved or those family members are also involved in that experience, that's when it's a real game changer. For me, with an activity that we have with one of ours in our grant program, it's a dual credit course at the peak of a pathway that we have for our students within a high school who are going on to post-secondary and hopefully their teaching pathway.
Yeah.
But it's as part of that, they're embedded in the classroom at the elementary level so that they're observing their job shadowing, they're actually assisting in the classroom with those younger students. And, you know, over this past year, we really made a concerted effort to build the school community for
Yeah.
these students. That was the first step when thinking about community engagement. We
Yeah.
really needed to heighten that school community engagement for the success of these students. And so now we need to really be intentional about what that looks like for family engagement or maybe the broader community for these students. You know, how do we celebrate that success out, but also then continue to wrap the community around these kids?
Love it. I love that whole program and creating that teacher pipeline from early. Great. Awesome. How about room number 7? Brian, Deidre, Lisa, Nancy, and Summer. Anyone want to share?
Brian, can we put you on the spot? You had some great ideas.
Oh, go ahead. Brian, you got to come off of mute. There you go.
There you go. Yes, go ahead. Are you going to make me put myself on the spot?
Yep.
Yeah.
So there was a question about how do we get families engaged? You know, you bring the food and those types of things. And my past life, I was a principal of a Title I school. And it was that same thing. We would have these spaghetti feeds, and after a while, they just quit showing up. And you try to have all the activities and tried everything. And the team came upon an idea of, we always have a spaghetti feed. What if we had them bring their own spaghetti feed? Meaning, what would that, in your culture, even your family culture, what do you serve when you just need to do a kind of the spaghetti feed? And we had a ton of people. They only had to bring enough for 5 people, and we're an extremely diverse community. But even within our community, we have a large military population. So sometimes those guys have been moved around so much, they brought their kind of family culture meal. So that was really good. And then we tried it the next year, and nobody showed up because it was so much work. So we realized we had to kind of give that a break and do it every other year or something like that. And then the other piece, as far as family engagement, was forever we wanted people to volunteer in the library or recess or whatever it was. I got nowhere. And then I realized I'd make, some of these parents become your friends, or you see them every single day helping their kid out of the car and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I just happened to say, hey, to this guy, we are so low on recess, we might have to have it inside. Could you just show up and blow a whistle if a kid tries to leave the recess? Just made it very specific.
Yeah.
And he said, sure. And then from then on, I just realized I couldn't just ask for volunteers. If I needed somebody for an after-school event, I had to say, can you just blow up the balloons and then you're done? And they're
Yeah.
willing to come in there. A lot of our parents have had their own school trauma. And so to go into a school and not have a specific task to do can bring back feelings of, the last time I was here, I felt awkward as well. So that just huge change in getting people to do it. And then they pretty soon start bringing a friend, right? Everybody else sees it. So it's those were our 2 successes, and I had many more unsuccessful tries at getting parents involved, but those seem to work the best.
Awesome. Great. That's great sharing. I think that's a great tip, right? Like, make sure, be specific. And I think another thing you showed is that relationship,
Mhm.
like to go to them and ask them via sending an email or the other ways, the flyers or whatever, but to address them directly. Awesome. Great. Thanks, you guys. Sounds like some really interesting, and thanks for letting me be nosy and hear what you folks are talking about and sharing with everybody else. So I want to come back. Let's see. I want to come back to this slide here, and we're going to put up a poll. I just want to ask, where is your program on this continuum? Where do you want to be next year? So 2 questions. One, where are you currently? And where, maybe do you aspire being maybe in the next year, maybe it'll be a couple more years down the road, but your aspiration. Some. Nice. So far, it looks like a lot of you want to move to deeper levels of engagement. And looks like a lot of you are at that place already where you are in involvement and collaborating, a few already in empowering. So awesome. Awesome. Okay. Let's see. I think we got mostly everybody. All right. All right, we can end that poll. Again, thanks for doing that. Gave us a good sense about where everybody's at. and what you aspire to be. Again, a lot of models around empowering can be, parents sitting on school boards or on planning committees, engaging businesses and partners in developing that, as well as having decision-making power on boards or on committees. Great. I'm going to end that poll. Thank you again for participating. All right. Let's move on. So one of the last key elements you want to have in a strong implementation program is, again, around monitoring progress. You have, what are the reasons why you want to monitor? Again, it keeps everybody accountable and focused. It helps support, again, continuous learning with your staff, always trying to make improvements. Also, it helps you recognize, again, what's working and then to make adjustments. Here are maybe some key questions you can look at to help you think about monitoring and how you could be monitoring. And then also some tools and strategies, whether it's a checklist or regular team check-ins, which I, again, highly encourage. And remember back when we were talking about roles, including your financial people in those team check-ins is great. Sometimes having a data dashboard or scorecards is good too. I think there's been some conversation about sharing, I think it was Carmelita talking about like a program sharing the success of the students as a way to both engage that student as well as bring more people into the program. And so storytelling and community feedback. We're going to dive in the next technical assistance bundle. We're going to dive deeper into monitoring, evaluation, and data storytelling. So I'm kind of briefly skimming this again, because we're going to get into that as we, in the next TA. Again, we are wanting to sort of maybe share out any tools or systems that maybe you're using now that allow you to monitor your program, also help you reflect on your schedule, the timeline of your program, and who is actually responsible for tracking and adapting your program. And so we can do this two ways. We can just go ahead and annotate this screen, and you can, again, go back to your More button, click on annotating. You can write your ideas right here, or you can throw it in the chat and share that as well. So again, what are the monitoring tools you're currently using? And we're just, with these questions, we're just sort of like trying to crowdsource information so we can all learn and see what other people are doing. And maybe actually take up one of the tools if you have a really great tool that, maybe we're looking at and but we're unaware of. So you can go ahead and, again, like I said, you can click on the annotate button and write straight on the screen, or you can put it in the chat. Oh yeah, you can also come off of mute and just let us know. Okay. Our grant evaluator developed a database called Hourglass. Wow, to help us track data and activities. That's fabulous. Once we achieved all people in the quick training to use it. Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. Bi-weekly project team meetings. Yeah. Those are, Those are important. Who will be responsible for RACI chart? Scheduled evaluations. Yep. Great. All right. And let me just check the chat. See if anything's going on over there. Gantz, yeah, Excel for life. Yeah. Yeah, our team uses, I think it could be for monitoring and also reflection. We use also monday.com. That helps. That's a tool that helps us monitor our work and the progress of our work. And we also use that for check-ins. Yeah. Specific working groups assigned to different activities, regular meetings, shared files of, documentation, specific work group members assigned tasks for document. Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing, Leslie. Tracking progress in PI tasks. Yeah. Unless you have external evaluator on board, which is, expensive. Personally, I find the OIE PDPDCS as the best tool. Oh, great. That helps. Yeah. I could see how that would be really helpful for monitoring. For sure. Okay. Again, thank you for sharing both in the chat and in the annotation. If somebody on the TA team could help erase the annotation, and I will move on to the next screen. Thanks for crowd sharing with us and sharing what you're using. And so one of the things as we sort of wrap up this session, and we want to just take a moment just for some internal reflection, or maybe you want to like write down some thoughts around this. One of the questions is really, where is your program currently the strongest? What's one strategy you can try in like the next 30 days, or that you want to implement in the next 30 days? Particularly, I think maybe, to focus that, if you need a focus around that is, we had that poll about where are you right now in engagement and where do you want to be? Maybe in the sharing after people came out of the breakout rooms, maybe there was a strategy you heard that could help you sort of get to your where you want to be as far as engagement grows. Maybe that's a strategy you want to reflect on. And then who can you partner with to make this happen? Again, you don't have to, share any of that. You just reflect on that. And you maybe want to journal or write down some ideas. We'll just take a moment to look at those questions. And as you're just sort of reflecting on that, I want to again circle back to where we started. And, we really wanted to get into how do we plan out real purposeful implementation strategies. We're sort of really at the high level, and you filled in the gap of talking about the actual strategies that you're utilizing. We went through defining roles and setting milestones and tracking progress, and hopefully got into a little bit of understanding how community shape and sustain work-based learning as we talked about engagement. We're gonna put up an end of event poll, but I just wanted to leave this with this final thought with you. We learned, the very sort of native way of thinking about education. We learn by watching, by doing, by participating. Children learn their roles in life by being with their family, their community. That's our educational system. I thought that was great. And so again, there's the end of event poll coming up. We'd love to get feedback from you. Remember that you got notices, I think today, to all project directors or anybody who's connected, who signed up for technical assistance training. We do have our talking circles coming up on July 22nd and 24th. This will be a more continued conversation regarding implementation, and you folks talking with each other. You are the primary source of information during talking circles. And so it'll be a great time of sharing and learning from each other. Are there any questions? Just gonna see if anybody has their hand up. No. Okay, awesome. If you are in your program and you're having any questions about your budget or your GEPA or your project objectives, please make sure you're reaching out to your OIE program officer for any of those questions. If you want a thought partner in that after you've talking and you want to do some revisions, you can always sign up for a coaching session with your TA team. And then the last slide, I just want to share again, contact information with you so that you can contact your program officer if you have any questions. And also, we do have the link there to sign up for a coaching session. And you can work with our TA team. We'll be a thought partner with you. Maybe you met with your program officer and they approve that you can do a budget revision. And so you kind of drafted, but you want just a thought partner to see if you put everything in the right place. That's a great opportunity to sign up for a coaching call. I want to thank everyone for participating and coming today. I hope this was valuable for you. I hope to see you in the talking circles coming up. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Aloha.